Welcome to the Great Canadian Piggy Bank, helping Canadian parents raise money-smart kids. Are you feeling like the financial world your teens are entering are completely different from the one you grew up in? You're not alone. Today we're talking about how parents can update their money mindset for a new reality, such as which old habits still matter and which ones need a refresh, and how to have modern money conversations with teens. Today I'm joined by Rob Carrick, personal finance guy who wrote for the Globe and Mail for 27 years and now the co-host of the Stress Test podcast. After more than 30 years of covering money markets and everyday financial decisions, Rob has had a front row seat of how our financial landscape has shifted. Thanks for joining, Rob.
Glad to do it.
Amazing. With your 30 years in financial journalism, what's the biggest shift you've seen in the financial landscape to the one that our kids are now entering?
You know, the biggest shift is towards more unrestrained consumerism. There is more pressure to buy, there's more stimuli to buy. And I think parents grew up in this consumer culture, but it was just a milder version of it. And now it's almost like there are invisible wires connecting to your brain saying, buy, buy, buy. You know what? You are not going to be a player unless you buy. You're not going to be matching up to what your friends are doing unless you buy. Parents feel it in their own way, but it's nothing compared to what Gen Zs are feeling today.
Yeah, absolutely. We grew up with the Sears catalog.
I remember that. I was telling one of our boys, now I have two sons, 28 and 31, and I was telling one of them about the Eaton's catalog. You know, that was a big deal. You know, we would right, that was a very analog experience, right? Because you looked at it, then your parents put it in the garbage, it was gone.
Absolutely. I remember going through it for every Christmas looking for what toys are out there. Absolutely.
For sure. Oh, yeah, I remember the same thing, but it was very one and done. You know, you looked, you wished, then gone.
So a lot of things have changed, as you said. They're very tapped in. So what are the top 2 to 3 things that parents absolutely need to understand about this new financial reality?
One is that their kids are on social media all the time, and social media is showing them images of all their friends and family members and contacts projecting their best selves. And you have to think, they're having all these experiences. Am I? I mean, and if I'm not, what's wrong with me and how do I get them? And then they have to realize that it's a very friction-free world when you're paying for stuff when you're a young person. And then second of all, there's even newer ways to pay for stuff like buy now, pay later, which I think is really starting to catch on with kids. It is definitely giving young people and older people a way to afford things they can't afford. And that's really what BNPL is all about. It's about businesses thinking, how can we get more money out of people? It's not, let's provide them with a great new way to pay. No, it's all about getting people to spend more, even if they can't afford it.
Absolutely. And now the BNPL is going to be part of Equifax as well, right? So it's going to be part of your credit score.
Well, I think that's a big move forward because it's putting it into the reality world. I think BNPL is a way to break the cost of an unaffordable thing down into little bite-sized pieces that I imagine I can afford. What I see happening is BNPL times 1, times 2, times 3. And next thing you know, these payments have grown into something that you really can't handle. And you end up with a bunch of stuff that you couldn't really afford. It's almost like streaming services. Next thing you know, you got 5 and you think, I wasn't really even aware I was accumulating that many.
Okay, so then this is good to talk about the guilt then. So if parents feel like they secretly messed up with money and they don't want their kids to repeat that, based on everything you've been writing for the last 30 years, how common is this?
It is pretty common. My experience is that everybody feels they made mistakes with money. You know, you look at all these polls about money stress, and these polls go back to be long before the pandemic when the economy was doing just fine. There were polls showing people had a high amount of stress. And I think a lot of it was generated by this feeling that I'm not really doing the right things. I think I might be okay here, but I made a bad mistake there. And people talk about going to retire at 60, and I don't think I can. And there's this predisposition to feeling shame and anxiety about money. And parents feel that, and their kids are going to feel that. And it's a natural part of the system. So what I'm trying to do is help people get small wins that they can say, I got this nailed. In terms of parents teaching their kids, I think an honest dialogue. You know what gets your kids' attention when you say, I want to talk to you about money, and let me tell you about a couple of mistakes I made. You know, when your parents are honest and vulnerable, it really gets your attention. You'll get more respect for doing that than you will for just lecturing, especially when the kids see a disconnect between what you're talking about and what you actually do. So if you can say, look, I did this and I really want you to avoid that because here's how it set me back, that'd be a great conversation. And it's a way to turn your money mistakes into assets, teachable moments.
Agreed. So based on all the parents that you've been writing about for many years, what's the one thing that you think parents can stop feeling guilty about around money?
Giving their kids money for stuff. That is
That's a good one.
Because one thing I've learned, and I've learned it partly through my work as a personal finance writer, partly as a dad, is that the old paradigm, as I would help raise them, get them to university, maybe pay for university or help pay if I could. But once they graduated and they got a job, they're on their own. They're launched. My financial obligations end there unless I choose to make a gift here or there, maybe help them with their wedding or give them a little cash for their house. But now it's a lot different. Parents are helping their kids right into adulthood, right into raising families and buying houses. They're helping with home down payments. They're helping cover daycare costs. I've done some surveys on this, and parents are helping their kids pay rent. They're helping them with groceries. They're helping with their kids' pets, vet bills. They're just basically all the expenses that young people are taking on to lead to what we would consider to be well-rounded middle-class lives. Parents are realizing, well, I have to help my kids if they're going to do that, like I did. And so it's a natural thing for parents to want to help to raise their kids up to a certain lifestyle. And I think it's okay to do it. I don't want to see people compromise their own financial well-being to do it, but don't feel like you're indulging. I think what you're doing is you're reflecting my position in the economy versus yours. I have a lot of power. You don't. I will give you some of mine, and hopefully you just don't give too much.
Exactly. Okay, so that's a great question because it's something I constantly struggle with. I read the Die with Zero and give your kids the money before you die, with the warm hand and whatnot. But how do you do it without them feeling entitled, or you're taking away some of their grit?
I think what you have to do is say, I'm expecting you to do this and that to build up your own economic standing, but I'll help you if you need it. So if your kid says, oh, I really like to go to an out-of-town university, you say, cool, that'll be great. Let's look at how much it costs and how much are you going to be able to make? Where's it coming from? So you're helping your kid go have this great experience. You're getting them to lay the groundwork, and then you're going to finish things off with a little extra cash strategically for things you think are worthwhile expenditures. We all want to treat our kids, but you know what? I think if you consistently say that, oh, you can't afford something, let me help. Then what you're teaching is my parents will pay for everything. But if you teach them, I will go out and work and I will save and I will make money and my parents may have my back if I reach an impasse and something that's really important.
Yeah, my parents, they paid for all of our universities, and then afterwards we could come back to them for money, but it was always a loan. It was an interest-free loan without a set deadline of payment, but
I like that idea.
And you signed a contract as well. It was
I like that idea. You know, and you mentioned paying for your kids' education. My wife and I did that. Both boys went to university. We said we're going to pay your tuition and your living costs to a certain level, as long as you participate in coming up with the money. I think it's almost more important to help your kids get through university or college without debt than it is to help them buy a house. Not all families can afford that, and if they can, there's interest-free federal student loans now, and there's bursaries and awards and that stuff. There's many ways for families to fill in the extra money, but I think it has to be a family effort. Kids earning money in their summer jobs or gift money or whatever, and parents contributing to the extent they can. And then if there's a shortfall, figure out how much it is, and then you can try all kinds of different methods to get it.
Agreed. No, I totally agree. It's such an incredible advantage. Okay, so then when I grew up, my parents would drill into me, save 10% of your income. So that's an old money habit. Is that still useful? And what's a modern update if not?
I think it's a good guideline for working people who have rent to pay and who have groceries to buy, maybe a car to operate and commuting costs, and they're going out with friends and socializing and that sort of thing. For a younger person who doesn't have any fixed expenses, really, I think 10% is a bit modest. How about half? How about say half or 1/3? You know what? And what are we saving it for? Like saving can't just be this vague notional concept or just put
Mm,
this money away. The saving idea is we're putting money away. It's for you to use later and to have the
absolutely.
discretion about yes, I can afford that now, not now, but later.
Yeah.
And saving for near, medium, and long-term goals. That's a high level of financial literacy. Saving is good, but managing the goals, and that's what you
Agreed.
could teach by telling them we're going to have an aggressive savings plan. So if you
Mm,
get $100, maybe 30, 40, 50 of it is going into this plan, and it's not taken away from you. It's just
mm-hmm,
we're going to postpone it, add more
mm-hmm.
savings, and then see what you could do with it.
And it's also, I know you guys just did an episode on the stress test about traveling. Some of that could go to a travel budget. It's not all going to retirement. It could go to different
Well, you know what?
things.
I think if you want to turn your kids off of financial literacy, start talking about retirement. It's too long in the future. I mean, I don't think people get really wired into saving for retirement. Most people until they're like 40. And
Oh
you
goodness.
should start sooner. Don't get me wrong. But to
Yeah.
tell your teen that they're going to put money away for retirement, that seems kind of pointless. Some teens may be energized by saving for a home.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then sure, start saving a little bit here and there. I mean, it's going to be, little grains of sand, but
Yeah.
they can add up. I think you need to say, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Oh, you want to travel? Let's build you up a travel
Focus on
fund.
that.
Let's take a quarter of every dollar that's coming in. We're going to put it in the travel fund, and we're going to go to your online bank,
Yeah.
and we're going to put a label. A lot of times you can nickname the savings accounts. Like what I find is when people have very tightly focused savings goals, they get kind of excited about building them up.
Yeah.
Rather than just saying savings, that doesn't get anybody excited.
Agreed. Agreed. I don't know what I need to go back and talk to my parents because they put the fear of God of retirement in all of us. I think we've all saved since age 19.
That's really interesting. I was not a naturally adept personal finance guy when I was younger. And my dad, who was not particularly great with money, his big passion was driving nice cars. But he said to me, have you thought about starting an RSP for retirement? And I thought I hadn't, no. And then I
Mm,
just got one going, and then I sort of got on the track that way. So I didn't get serious about it until much, much later. And I think that's
mm.
okay for younger people. You can't tell young people, you're going to have to save for university and you're going to have to save for your first house and having a family and retirement. You might as well
Oh
say,
my God.
and space travel and, taking a 5-year
Absolutely.
gap year and all kinds of impossible goals. And we have to be reasonable with what we're expecting people to save for at any given age.
So basically, what I'm hearing then is just the habit of saving.
The habit of saving and the thought process of what am I saving for and when am I going to use this money?
Isn't that's a good question is so what money skills matter more for today's teen than they did for our parents' generation?
The idea that when I spend money electronically, it costs me just as much as when I pay in
Right?
cash because it's so easy. A lot of apps store your credit card information, like for instance, Amazon, and sometimes the whole family has access to the Amazon account. That is a big issue, like friction-free
Hmm.
consumerism, and somehow parents have got to make it clear that your spending is taking money out of your account.
Mm. Yeah, I know. I just enabled the tap on my child's phone. And so she's had it for about 2 months and she burns through her allowance so quickly now. The other day I was like, wow, so it's all gone, eh? Like, that's quite a few snacks at 7-Eleven at lunchtime. And she's like, it's so easy with the tap, Mom. And I was like,
It is.
I'm like, do you want me to remove it? And she's like, no, I just need to get better with it, which is,
You
I
know,
think,
and
great.
what's even worse than that is the credit card though, because at least she
Yeah.
sees with the tap that okay, the debit is in. I see my account's been debited. With the credit card,
Yeah.
there's no debit in your accounts.
Okay, so we touched on housing. That feels like the biggest generational divide right now. How can parents talk to teens about alternative paths to housing, such as renting long-term or co-living, moving cities for affordability, without making them feel doomed in life?
There is a doom sentiment of young people will never this and will never that. To which I
Yeah.
say, not so fast. You're going to be in the workforce for
Mm,
40 or 50 years. You'll do better than you are now. Don't
mm,
write yourself off. So keep saving. Don't just start spending everything because you think you're doomed.
exactly.
The problem with renting is not that kids don't don't want to do it. It's that their parents make them feel bad for doing it.
Mm.
Renting is paying your landlord's rent. Renting is a waste of money. You should be owning and owning a home is building equity. It's a forced savings plan. Home ownership's a religion in Canada, and that has really hurt this country. That is why house prices are so out of whack in some cities, way above the growth in incomes. It's all because we thought they're investments. Just do anything to buy a house, pay anything to get one. Now, hopefully the past few years have sort of tamed that a little bit. But what I think parents need to do is to tell their kids, home is great. But if you can't afford one, that's fine. You'll have a place that you rent and you can have a nice life in that. But you have to be sure that you save and invest extra money as the renter.
That's
but
the hard
your
one.
investment portfolio that you have after 40 years as a renter will be a nice piece of wealth. And it won't be the same as the home equity that the homeowner has, but it's actually more useful.
Yep.
Like an investment portfolio where you could sell and buy and take money out in a flash versus home equity where you have to borrow against it. I think a lot would say I'd rather have the investment portfolio. You can do quite well for yourself. And in fact, renters have a couple of advantages. For instance, if you need to move for a better job opportunity, you go. You don't have to tell your landlord, I'm out of here on this date, and you don't have to sell your house.
Yep.
You are way more mobile, and that opens you up to being a lot more nimble for making career-defining moves outside the city where you live.
Absolutely. I didn't buy a condo in Vancouver till I was 32. I didn't realize I was behind. I was traveling till then, so
you know what? 32 sounds like a perfect age to get into the housing market. And I think your 30s, you've had a chance to travel and enjoy your life and get your career going and sort of get a sense of who you are.
Absolutely.
And you're much more ready to take on the responsibility.
Absolutely. Okay, so then if parents want to set their teens up for success in today's world but doesn't know where to start, what's the simplest first step?
Simplest first step is to get them saving money. When you get your first part-time job or any regular inflow of money, they get used to the idea that money in isn't everything that I spend, that I am carving off some and using that for future use, which is what savings is.
So you've seen a lot of financial trends come and go. What gives you hope for the next generation?
I think they are extremely curious about personal finance and investing.
Agreed.
And more than any other generation, they want to know. And partly that's because there's a lot of influencers and social media people talking about this stuff. But I think it's partly a recognition in that they need to get a handle on this more than previous generations. Young people know it's a big deal, and they are extremely curious, and parents should take a very, very big role in helping them understand and get the answers to questions. Find out what influencers they're being influenced by. Get a sense of what kind of input they're getting on money. Like if they're paying attention to a lot of influencers or getting them to buy products, consumerism is just big business trying to sell you stuff.
Absolutely.
It's not trying to make your life better. They want you to buy stuff. And you are just a zombie customer to them. Teach them to push back a little bit on that. Teach them to think a little bit critically about all the pitches and all the influencers they're listening to. Everybody's got an agenda to sell stuff. Be aware of that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I was reading in the Globe in the summertime that 60% of Gen Zs actually have TFSA savings, which I thought was incredible.
It is. It's great. Now, I've heard a lot of Gen Zs, 18 and up, who can have investing accounts and such, are like taking part-time job money, gift money, and they're investing it through stock trading apps, and they're shooting for the moon there. And a great stock market, everybody's doing really well, but it's sort of tied into this gambling mentality.
Totally.
It's almost like there's this nexus between sports gambling and investing as a sport, and a lot of Gen Zs are taking on a lot of risk to hit home runs, to make big financial gains, because they think saving is fine, but I'm only going to save this much. But if I can double or triple my money, that is a big win. And I think parents need to watch that mentality, because it's great to have a TFSA. What's in it and what are you doing with that? That's a whole other thing. So I applaud all the young people who have TFSAs. I'm just mildly curious about what you're doing with it, because some of them are going to be vaporizing wealth as opposed to building it.
Agreed. I agree. Okay, so final question then. What's one question parents can ask their kids tonight that opens up a great money conversation?
I would ask them, what's What's your biggest financial goal in life? You know what? Do you want to be rich? Do you want to own a house? Do you want to travel a lot? Do you want to move out as soon as you can? And ask how we can get there.
Mm.
What's our way to get there? I want people to think that everything they want in life is achievable. So you're talking about wishes and dreams, and you're talking about practical steps. And I think those two need to be married together. Long-term savings, that you struggle to reach those goals, but you do with there's a little adversity, it takes time. Those are the ones that teach you the lessons about how to achieve financial success. It's a very slow process. It's a very gradual process. It's not really that appealing to describe it that way to people, but that's financial success is built step by step. It isn't built in a, with purchases or risky gambling decisions. It's a lot less glamorous.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely great. And just give them that motivation so that they just, as you said, so they don't spend it all in YOLO life.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. This has been fantastic. I've been fangirling all week, getting ready to chat with you. So thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Christi. That was a great chat.
Thank you. I learned today that the world my kid is stepping into is louder, faster, and far more frictionless than the one I grew up in. And pretending it isn't only makes things harder. Rob reminded me that small habits matter, honest conversations matter, and helping our kids financially when done thoughtfully isn't a failure. It's a reflection of today's reality. I really loved Rob's final suggestion. Sit down tonight and ask your teen, what is your biggest financial goal in life? It turns money from being a lecture into a dream building session. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with another parent, follow the show, or leave a quick review. It really helps more families find these amazing conversations. I'm Christi Rae, and this is the Great Canadian Piggy Bank, helping Canadian parents raise money-smart kids.